We have before us what is a common sense motion. Over the last number of weeks, in the aftermath of the horrific invasion that took place by Hamas into Israel on October 7th, we have been thrust into a situation where our friends in Israel and our friends in the Jewish community around the world have faced attacks in an unprecedented way. And what we have before us is a simple opportunity to not just stand for the people of Israel and the Jewish community in our country, but to truly stand on the side of freedom, to stand up for the very rights and freedoms, Madam Chair, that we all take so seriously, or at least I would hope we all take very, very seriously. So just to recap, we have the motion here would do 5 simple things. 1, designate the IRGC as a terrorist entity under the Criminal Code and expel the estimated 700, let me emphasize that, 700 Iranian agents operating in Canada. Number 2, establish a foreign influence registry. Number 3, evaluate Canada's threat assessment in light of the UK travel advisory. 4, remove red tape and speed up access to the security infrastructure program to protect communities at risk. And 5, create an anti-hate crime task force to coordinate the protection of faith communities. And Madam Chair, the reason why it's important to dive into the substance of what this motion is because it speaks to one of the fundamental values that defines us as Canadians, and that is the very idea of freedom. And in that freedom, that includes freedom of association, freedom of expression, and freedom of religion. I have had a number of examples where I've spoken to people of faith within the communities that I represent, where they have felt persecuted, where they have felt, and this is across the spectrum, those in the Jewish community, those in the Muslim community, those in the Christian community, and those without a faith, where they have felt a level of an erosion of the faith that we have traditionally had in the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. A fear that the Canadian experience, the freedoms associated with that, is eroding. This motion is a simple, straightforward, and practical way that we can emphasize how important we take the preservation of those freedoms in light of what has happened again in Israel, what has been the experience of far too many across our country who have faced persecution and in some cases hatred for their belief system. And Madam Chair, I would simply state, as I've spoken with a number of constituents related to church burnings, there's been a number of churches that have been burnt down in the communities that I represent. And the fear associated with those communities as they endeavor to rebuild after a devastating act that destroyed what was seen as a safe place in the community and in those parishioners' lives. It speaks to how important it is and how we unequivocally need to act. So and to wrap up my comments, I said that I would be brief, and although there is much that I would love to talk about related to this, I will simply say this. We have seen a growing disconnect between Parliament and the executive in our country. In the 42nd Parliament, more than 4 years ago, the Parliament voted unanimously, is my understanding. I was not a member then, but Parliament voted unanimously to designate the IRGC a terrorist entity. We've seen support for a foreign influence registry, and we've seen wide support for the other 3 items brought forward. The disconnect that exists between the parliamentary system and the executive of our government in Canada is very concerning, and one that I would hope all members take seriously. because that disconnect is something that further contributes to an erosion of trust that can take place that strikes to the heart of what our democracy is and the essential provisions that are required to preserve what I shared in relation to the freedoms that we enjoy as Canadians. And, Madam Chair, to conclude, this motion is simple, straightforward, it's common sense, so that we can ensure that we bring home a level of security, safety, and preserve freedom in the great country that we call Canada, and to protect those that need protection at a time when many see an erosion of trust that it can be done. Let's buck that trend. Let's get this done. Let's support it before this committee, and let's ensure that we have the opportunity before the House of Commons to ask that same question. And I would hope, Madam Chair, that every MP would stand in favor of common sense. Thank you.
Thank you.